Bleacher Report just released their top 20 WNBA player rankings ahead of the 2025 season. So who's in the top 5? Number 1, A'ja Wilson. Number 2, Napheesa Collier. Number 3, Breanna Stewart. Number 4, Alyssa Thomas. And number 5, Caitlin Clark. So let's talk.
Did you just see that Caitlin Clark, who placed 4th in the MVP voting, inexplicably fell to 5th place overall in the new WNBA player rankings? Rachel DeMita is furious about the disrespect. How could a player who revolutionized women's basketball be devalued in this manner? There is something wrong with these rankings, and the evidence shows a blatant bias against the athlete who is quickly emerging as the new face of women's basketball. The media's rationale revolves around championships and turnovers, but really expecting a rookie to have a championship rings already defies any scrutiny. Take a look at what Rachel DeMita said, but
Let's talk about this top 5 because I don't love it. As you can probably guess, I don't love it. Caitlin Clark at 5 is crazy to me, and it's crazy to me just off the rip because if we look at the MVP voting from last season, she was number 4 in MVP voting. It was A'ja, Napheesa, Breanna, and then Caitlin. I don't know how she slides down into the number 5 spot, especially behind Alyssa.
Let's consider the bigger picture. Clark's incredible success of finishing 4th in MVP voting during her first season demonstrates how influential she was from the start. However, how does someone who is chosen as the league's 4th most valuable player end up ranking 5th overall? Basketball enthusiasts are
conversations around Caitlin Clark are reminiscent of crash outs, very often completely out of proportion to the reality of this point, but it is strange to see them continue with such passion, and really all they are is an indication of Caitlin Clark's motion and
who they put above her is really perplexing. Even though Alyssa Thomas had injuries during the previous season, she still finished higher than Clark.
Alyssa Thomas is a veteran getting older in this league, and Caitlin Clark is only going into her 2nd season. She is also not coming off of a college season. She essentially played an NBA season last year, the amount of games that she played. She has had an entire offseason to get stronger, to get ready for the 2nd WNBA season, and now she has pieces around.
Thomas is a terrific athlete, but how can a player who battled health problems surpass the youngster who is destroying the league? Veteran commentator Rachel DeMita referred to the rankings as crazy and explicitly questioned this comparison, pointing out how
she shouldn't be 5. She absolutely shouldn't be 5. I have her top 3. Probably top.
This controversy exposes media efforts to shape the narrative surrounding who gets to represent women's basketball. It appears that there is a reluctance to fully embrace Clark's influence, almost as if there is an unspoken rule that rookies cannot advance too quickly, regardless of their influence or performance.
She was getting double and triple teamed last season, face guarded. You guys seen it. We've talked about it so many times on here, and she was still in the top 4 of MVP voting and still broke so many records as a rookie.
The fact that Clark entered a league full of seasoned veterans as a rookie, took hits every game, faced relentless defense, and still played at an MVP caliber level is impressive.
So let's talk about why they put her at number 5. The writer says Clark was also somewhat tough to slot. Having a rookie ahead of multiple champions and MVPs feels like a case of too much too soon, and there aren't court quibbles to poke at. The turnover numbers, I knew this was coming. Though explainable with coverage and degree of difficulty, context are still a lot. There is certainly growth needed defensively, particularly.
When you hear what they're saying, it will make your blood boil. They're focusing on 2 main criticisms: her turnover numbers and her lack of championship rings. However, these justifications collapse the moment you exercise even the smallest amount of critical thought. Let's start with the
As much as people harp on Caitlin about turnovers and not having any rings, I just want to take this mic and bang it against my head if I hear someone else say that she hasn't won anything and that's why we can't label her as great.
This occurs as a result of Clark's unique perspective on the court. She anticipates opportunities 3 steps ahead of other players until they have already passed, and her teammates fumble her precise passes. Clark bears the statistical burden of their shortcomings.
LeBron goes in the league his first season and doesn't win an NBA title, and all of a sudden he can't be top 5 in MVP voting. Like, we don't do this in any other sport, and we especially don't do it in basketball. We do not rank NBA players based on if they won in college or how many titles.
Using these turnovers as a smokescreen, analysts ignore Clark's scoring prowess, game-changing shooting range, and court vision, which open up opportunities for everyone around her. They're evaluating a 5-course meal by focusing only on the napkins. Their second, even more irrational, justification is that Clark should be ranked lower because other players have championship rings.
But we do not do this, especially in their first year. So the fact that they're putting her at 5 just because other people have won championships is just a cop-out, in my personal opinion. She shouldn't be 5. She absolutely shouldn't be 5. I have her top 3. Probably top 2, just because of what we've seen.
The underlying fact that championships are team accomplishments rather than individual ones is highlighted by Dita, who labeled this argument a terrible cop-out and pointed out that utilizing rings as the main criterion for individual rankings is seriously problematic, particularly for a first-year.
They're also going by what if these players played in the offseason. There's only one person, 2 people actually, 2 people in the top 5 who played during the offseason in Unrivaled, and that's Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. And if you're going by that, Breanna Stewart actually didn't do as well as a lot of people were expecting in Unrivaled, and she also didn't win. I don't even think her team made playoffs. And again, I'm not holding that against her because it's a different type of game, but I think a lot of people were expecting Breanna Stewart to be in that MVP conversation in Unrivaled, and she wasn't.
When looking at athletes that are ranked higher, the double standard is more obvious. Since titles and team success are so important, shouldn't Clark, Emsa Collier, and Breanna Stewart be ranked higher even though their teams didn't even qualify for the playoffs the previous?
That championships are definitely a team recognition. They are something that a team does together and accomplish as a player. And when you're ranking players, you are ranking them as an individual unit rather than a...
Yes, that's correct. When assessing other players, the media has made special guidelines exclusively for Clark. Instead of focusing on individual talent and skill, they abruptly switched to team accomplishments and context-free statistics for Clark, shifting the goalposts so clearly that even casual fans...
I don't think Breanna Stewart should be ahead of Caitlin, and I also don't think Alyssa Thomas should be ahead of Caitlin. This is nothing against either of these 2.
In order to prevent Clark from receiving the credit she merits, this rating reveals a concerted attempt to dictate who will represent women's basketball by using standards that no rookie...
Okay, so you just really honestly can't make this up, as it seems like the goalpost for the best college basketball player has shifted as Caitlin Clark has entered the conversation.
This pattern of contempt runs deep, and you won't believe how obvious it has been. It's not just occurring now. It's been the strategy since her college days.
I'm not here rah feminist anything, but I feel like the idea of showing Caitlin Clark more praise than other people is something that is very hard for the mainstream media and a lot of other people that are not fans of Caitlin Clark.
The woman who revolutionized the sport and broke scoring records somehow missed the cut when ESPN compiled their list of the top 5 women's college basketball players. The worst part is that they still used Clark's face as the article's thumbnail, taking advantage of her fame to drive clicks while also claiming she wasn't good enough to be listed among the best.
The reason that they removed Caitlin Clark from the conversation was because she does not have a championship ring. For college basketball, remember, just college. We're not talking about anything else.
Knowing that audiences would be drawn to Clark, ESPN was more than happy to use her image to promote their content. However, when those same fans saw that she was removed...
I just found a 4-year-old video from SportsCenter/ESPN where they did rank the top 10 college basketball players of all time. 6 of them are men, 4 of them are women, and get this, 3 of the men did not have any sort of championship ring whatsoever.
When ESPN combined the top 10 college basketball players of all time, including 3 men who never won championships, that same justification falls apart when looking at their other rankings. Winning championships became a requirement for women, but remained optional.
Elevating your team, it's how much does that go into the MVP conversation? Are we just going to put these players' stats on paper and compare them in that sense? Or are we going to see how they're also impacting their team, elevating their teammates, and making their team better?
For male players without titles, it's similar to playing a game where the rules change in the middle of play, and just when you think you've scored, the goalposts move. The story highlights Clark's incredible individual talent in spite of the team's flaws, which leads to her being unable to rank among the best without team success. The requirements mysteriously change based on what is required to support preventing Clark from being recognized. The objectives are never set in stone. They are always about titles, turnovers, experience, or some other nebulous factor that conveniently benefits seasoned players. Every new standard is introduced at the exact moment when it is required to support Clark's.
It has gotten to the point where she is so good, she is so honored, she is so celebrated and decorated now with all of these awards and different things that it cannot be denied. It can't be denied at this point if everyone is saying it but a small little group. It really, like, this small little group is clearly the one that is in the wrong at this point and is just not able to see what the reality is and see the greatness of Caitlyn.
When these same media outlets talk about women's basketball growing, they write articles complaining about low viewership and planning audience expansion. Then, when Clark does just that, drawing record crowds, huge TV ratings, and millions of new fans, they actively lessen her influence rather than celebrate it. This further highlights the
With the Fever, a lot of people weren't even expecting them to make playoffs. Can A'ja Wilson bring her team to the playoffs, make it past the first round, put up the numbers like she is, but also elevate her team and get her teammates involved and really become that leader?
When Clark's popularity threatened their preferred hierarchy, they stepped up their efforts to discredit her. This is a systematic attempt by some media gatekeepers to control the narrative surrounding women's basketball. They are deciding who gets to be the face of the sport based on factors unrelated to actual impact or performance. Why are these outlets so determined to hold back the very player who is providing exactly what the sport needs? Is it because she challenges their authority as arbiters of who matters? Is it because her meteoric rise wasn't part of their pre-written narrative? Or is it something even more concerning: resistance to seeing women's basketball achieve